Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the star charts with satisfaction. The Fourth Fleet of the Zephyrian Empire stretched out behind him like a deadly constellation. 50 dreadnoughts, each one, capable of cracking a planet's crust. 300 cruisers armed with plasma cannons that could melt through any known armor. 1,000 smaller vessels filled with warriors eager for conquest. This was the might that had brought 37 star systems under Empire rule. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency around him. Their scaled skin gleamed under the blue light of the control panels. Each one was a veteran of countless campaigns against primitive worlds. They had seen species after species kneel before the Empire's power. Today would be no different. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Zephyrin, her voice carrying the musical tones of their language, "we are receiving more transmissions from the target system, the same crude radio signals as before." Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Still using radio waves? How quaint. What do our scouts report about their technology level?" "Senior." Scout Commander Thexara approached the Admiral's platform. His report tablet glowed softly in his clawed hands. "The species calls themselves humans, Admiral. They inhabit the third planet from their system's star. Our deep scans show no energy, shields protecting their world, no plasma weapon signatures, no faster-than-light communication arrays. Their most advanced vessels appear to be simple chemical rockets that barely reach their own system's edge." "Pathetic," muttered Weapons Officer Klextos from his station. "My personal hunting ship has more firepower than their entire space fleet." The bridge crew chittered with laughter. Vextar raised a hand for silence. "Continue your report, Commander." Thexara nodded. "Their population centers show primitive energy patterns, nuclear fission, fossil fuel burning, some basic fusion reactors. Nothing that suggests they could pose even the smallest threat to a single Empire corvette, much less the Fourth Fleet. Intelligence estimates their total civilization to be at level 2.3 on the Galactic Development Scale." "Level 2.3? Vexitar's eye stalk swiveled in surprise. "We usually don't even bother with civilizations below level 4. Why did High Command send an entire fleet for such primitives?" "Their system contains unusual mineral deposits, Admiral. Rare. Elements that the Empire's shipyards require. The High Command wants the system pacified and ready for mining operations within one standard cycle." Vextar nodded. That made sense. The Empire's endless expansion required vast amounts of resources. These humans were simply unlucky enough to live on valuable real estate. "Show me their world," he commanded. The main view screen shifted to display Earth as seen from the Empire's long-range sensors. A blue and green marble spinning slowly in the darkness. White clouds swirled across its surface. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. Vextar had seen dozens of worlds like this one. They all looked peaceful until the Empire's ships arrived. "Estimated population?" he asked. "Approximately 8 billion individuals, Admiral. Divided among several hundred political units, they appear to lack unified global governance. Even better, divided primitives are easier to conquer than united ones." Vextar studied the planet for a moment longer, then turned away. "Prepare the standard ultimatum. Give them the usual 72-hour deadline." Communications Officer Zephyrin began, composing the message. Her claws danced across the holographic interface with practiced speed. The Empire's ultimatum had been refined over centuries of conquest. It was simple, direct, and left no room for misunderstanding. "Message prepared, Admiral," she announced. "Transmit on all frequencies. Make sure every government on that world receives it." The message flashed across space toward Earth at faster-than-light speeds. Within moments it would reach every communication satellite, every radio telescope, every primitive receiving station the humans possessed. "Message to the inhabitants of the third planet Sol system." The transmission began in perfect galactic standard. "This is Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire's Fourth Fleet. Your system has been designated for Imperial expansion. You have 72 standard hours to surrender unconditionally. Disable all military forces. Prepare your leaders for transport to Imperial custody. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your world. This is your only warning. Vextar settled back into his command throne, satisfied. The message was clear enough that even primitives could understand it. Now came the waiting period. Some species surrendered immediately upon seeing the Empire's fleet. Others took the full 72 hours to accept reality. A few foolish ones actually tried to fight. Those fights never lasted long. "Admiral," Zephyrin called out an hour later, "we're receiving a response from the human homeworld." "Already?" That was quick. "Let me hear their surrender." The communication crackled with static as it played through the bridge speakers. The voice was alien, speaking in crude galactic standard with a thick accent that made several bridge officers wince. "This is Earth Command," the voice said slowly. "You have entered Terran space without authorization. Withdraw immediately. This is your only warning." Silence filled the bridge for several heartbeats. Then Weapons Officer Klextos began laughing. His laughter triggered others, until the entire bridge crew was chittering and clicking with amusement. "Did they just—" Senior Scout Commander Thexara could barely speak through his laughter. "Did they just warn us?" "They're threatening the Fourth Fleet," Communications Officer Zephyrin gasped. "Primitives with chemical rockets are threatening 50 dreadnoughts." Vextar held up a hand, though he was struggling not to laugh himself. "Perhaps they didn't understand our message. Send it again, this time with visual displays of our fleet's firepower." The second transmission included detailed scans of the Fourth Fleet's weapons capabilities, plasma cannons that could vaporize mountains, kinetic bombardment systems that could crack continents, antimatter warheads that could sterilize entire hemispheres. The message was clear: surrender or face total annihilation. The response came, back within minutes. "This is Earth Command. Our previous message stands. Withdraw from Terran space immediately. You will not receive another warning." This time the laughter was less restrained. Junior officers at their stations were openly mocking the humans' response. Even the normally serious weapons officer was shaking his head in disbelief. "Such arrogance from creatures who haven't even achieved proper spaceflight," muttered Thexara. "Do they not understand what they're facing?" "Apparently not," Vextar replied. "No matter. Their ignorance will make the conquest quicker. Set course for their system's outer edge. We'll give them a demonstration they can't ignore." The Fourth Fleet adjusted course with the smooth precision of a military formation that had conquered star systems together. Their faster-than-light engines engaged, folding space around the massive vessels. Within hours, they would reach the edge of the Sol system. As they traveled, Vextar reviewed the intelligence reports about humanity. The species seemed fairly typical for primitives. They had discovered nuclear fission about a century ago, achieved basic spaceflight a few decades. Later, their longest-range vessels had barely reached their system's outer planets. They had built a few small space stations, established some mining operations on their moon and nearby worlds. All perfectly normal for a level 2.3 civilization. What puzzled him was their response to the Empire's ultimatum. Most primitive species reacted to first contact with the Empire in predictable ways. Fear was common. Desperate attempts at negotiation were frequent. Immediate surrender happened often. But outright defiance, from a species that had never encountered hostile aliens before, it made no tactical sense. "Perhaps their leaders are simply too primitive to understand the threat," suggested Science Officer Velthan when Vextar shared his thoughts. "Some species lack the mental capacity to process concepts beyond their immediate experience. Or maybe they're in denial," offered Thexara. "When faced with overwhelming force, some primitives convince themselves it isn't real." Vextar nodded. Both explanations seemed reasonable. He had encountered similar reactions before, though usually from individual leaders rather than entire species. No matter. Reality would correct their misunderstanding soon enough. The Fourth Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Immediately, their sensors began scanning for human military assets. The results were exactly what intelligence had predicted. Pathetically weak. "Sensor sweep complete, Admiral," reported Sensor Chief Nextall. detecting several small space stations in the inner system, multiple primitive satellites around the third planet, some basic mining installations on nearby worlds and asteroids. No significant military presence detected. Any signs they're preparing for our arrival? Negative, Admiral. Their communication traffic has increased but shows no signs of military coordination. Their primitive space vessels are maintaining normal operational patterns. If anything, their space traffic has decreased slightly. Strange. Most species either panicked or mobilized when faced with invasion. These humans seemed to be doing neither. What about their homeworld surface? Still scanning, Admiral. Their population centers show normal energy patterns. No evidence of military mobilization. No additional weapons signatures. They appear to be continuing their normal daily activities. Vextar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Either these humans were incredibly stupid, or they were in complete denial about the threat they faced. Both possibilities suggested the conquest would be easier than expected. Admiral, Communications Officer Zephyrin announced, "We're receiving new transmissions from the human homeworld. More warnings?" Vextar asked with amusement. "No, Admiral. These appear to be normal communication traffic. News broadcasts, commercial transmissions, personal messages. They're discussing our presence, but in a very strange way." "Explain." "They seem to be treating our arrival as interesting news, not as an existential threat. Many of their broadcasts are speculating about peaceful contact with alien civilizations. Some are expressing excitement about potential technological exchange." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Excitement? These primitives thought the Empire had come for peaceful first contact? "Do they not understand what a military fleet looks like?" demanded Weapons Officer Klextos. "Apparently not," Zephyrin replied. "Several of their news broadcasts are calling our formation an impressive display of alien engineering and wondering when formal diplomatic contact will begin." Vextar decided these humans were simply too primitive to recognize a threat when they saw one. Their ignorance would make the demonstration even more effective. "Take us to the outermost planet in their system," he commanded. "It's time to show them exactly what kind of diplomatic contact they're about to experience." The Fourth Fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, their sensors cataloging every human installation they passed. Everything matched intelligence reports perfectly. Primitive technology, minimal defensive capabilities, no signs of hidden military assets. The humans had built exactly the kind of simple, straightforward civilization that the Empire's scouts had described. As they approached Pluto, Vexitar felt a familiar satisfaction. Soon these humans would understand their situation. They would see their outermost world destroyed with casual ease, and their primitive minds would finally grasp the futility of resistance. Then they would surrender, like all the others before them. The Fourth Fleet took position around Pluto, their weapon systems powering up. Admiral Vextar smiled as he prepared to deliver the demonstration that would bring another species under Imperial rule. Admiral Vextar watched Pluto grow larger on the main view screen as the Fourth Fleet took position around the dwarf planet. The small, icy world spun slowly in the darkness, completely unaware that it was about to become a demonstration of Imperial power. "All ships in position, Admiral," reported Fleet Coordinator Reshikim. "Weapons locked on target." "Open a channel to the human homeworld," Vextar commanded. "Make sure they're watching." Communications Officer Zephyrin worked at her station for several moments. "Channel open, Admiral, broadcasting on all human frequencies." Vextar stepped forward, his image being transmitted across space to Earth. He wanted the humans to see his face when their outermost world died. "People of Earth," he began, his voice carrying the authority of the Empire. "You have ignored our ultimatum. You have refused to surrender. Now you will see the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire." He gestured to Weapons Officer Klextos. "Fire." The dreadnought Eternal Dominion had been built to destroy planets. Its main cannon could punch through continental crust and trigger volcanic eruptions that would reshape entire worlds. Against a small planet like Pluto, the weapon was absolutely devastating. The plasma beam struck Pluto's surface with the force of 1,000 nuclear weapons. The planet's icy crust vaporized instantly, creating a massive explosion that could be seen from the inner system. Within seconds, the entire world was gone, replaced by expanding clouds of superheated gas and debris. "Target destroyed, Admiral," Klextos reported with satisfaction. The bridge crew watched the destruction with professional interest. They had seen many worlds die, but the complete annihilation of a planet never lost its impressiveness. "Transmit the results to Earth," Vextar ordered. "Make sure they understand what just happened." The transmission showed the destruction from multiple angles. Pluto had existed for billions of years, and the Empire had erased it in seconds. The message was clear. This is what resistance brings. "Now send our final ultimatum," Vextar continued. "Tell them they have 12 hours to surrender, or their homeworld suffers the same fate." The message flashed toward Earth at faster-than-light speed. Vexatar settled back into his command throne to wait for the humans' response. Usually after a demonstration like this, primitive species surrendered within minutes. Fear was a universal language, and the Empire spoke it fluently. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 4. "Admiral," Zephyrin announced, her voice puzzled. "We're receiving a response from Earth." "Finally. Let me hear their surrender." But the message that played through the bridge speakers was not a surrender. "This is Earth Command. We acknowledge the destruction of Pluto. We repeat our previous message. Withdraw from Terran space immediately. This is your final warning." The bridge fell silent. Several officers looked at each other in confusion. Senior Scout Commander Thexara was the first to speak. "Did they just warn us again? After we destroyed their planet?" "They're still threatening us," whispered Communications Officer Zephyrin, "even after seeing our firepower." Vextar stared at the communication panel in disbelief. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that continued defying the Empire after a planetary destruction demonstration. It simply didn't happen. Fear was supposed to override pride. Survival instinct was supposed to overcome stubbornness. "Are we certain they understood the message?" he demanded. Perhaps their primitive minds couldn't process what they witnessed. All human communication frequencies went silent for 17 minutes after the demonstration, Zephyrin reported. Then their activity resumed, but changed in nature. Less casual conversation, more focused transmissions between their government centers. "So they did understand," muttered Weapons Officer Klextos. "They saw us destroy Pluto, and they still refuse to surrender." "Perhaps they're planning something," suggested Science Officer Velthan. "Some primitive species attempt desperate, last-minute attacks when cornered." Vextar activated his personal scanner and began studying the human homeworld more carefully. Earth continued spinning peacefully in space, its blue oceans and white clouds unchanged since their arrival. The planet showed no signs of preparing for battle. No energy spikes from weapons charging, no unusual movement of spacecraft, no changes in electromagnetic output that would suggest military preparation. "Sensor Chief, report on human military activity." Nextall worked at his station for several minutes before responding. "Scanning complete, Admiral. Human military forces are maintaining normal peacetime operations. Their primitive aircraft are following standard patrol routes. Their naval vessels are conducting routine exercises. Their space installations show no signs of weapons charging or defensive preparations." "That's impossible," Thexara protested. "No species ignores a planetary destruction demonstration and then continues business as usual." "Perhaps they're in shock," offered Velthan. "Some primitive minds shut down when faced with incomprehensible threats." But even as he said it, the science officer sounded doubtful. Vexatar had studied alien psychology extensively during his rise through Imperial ranks. Shock typically produced frantic activity, not calm continuation of normal operations. "Communications Officer, are the humans still transmitting on their normal frequencies?" "Yes, Admiral. News broadcasts, commercial traffic, personal communications, all normal patterns, though the content has changed somewhat." "How so?" "They're discussing our presence extensively, but not with the fear we typically observe. Many seem curious about our technology. Some are speculating about our intentions, Others are debating the philosophical implications of first contact with an alien civilization. Vextar's mandibles clicked in confusion. Philosophical implications? They had just watched the Empire destroy a planet, and they were having philosophical debates? "Admiral," Sensor Chief Nextall called out, "I'm detecting something unusual." "Report. Human communication traffic patterns are changing. Instead of the panic or desperation we usually see after demonstrations, their governments appear to be coordinating something. I'm detecting increased secure transmissions between major population centers." "Military coordination?" "Unknown, Admiral. The transmissions are encrypted with methods our translation systems cannot decode." That was interesting. Most primitive species used simple encryption that Imperial computers could break within minutes. If the humans had developed more sophisticated methods, they might be slightly more advanced than intelligence had reported. How much more advanced could they be? Vextar wondered aloud. "Not significantly," Thexara assured him. "Our scouts conducted thorough surveys. Their technology is definitely primitive. Even if they have some tricks we missed, they cannot possibly threaten the Fourth Fleet." Vextar nodded, but something about the situation bothered him. 37 star systems had taught him to trust his instincts, and his instincts were suggesting that something was wrong. "Take us deeper into the system," he decided. "We'll advance toward their homeworld and see how they react." The Fourth Fleet began moving toward the inner Sol system. As they traveled, their sensors continued scanning for any changes in human behavior. The results remained puzzling. "Admiral, the humans are definitely coordinating something," Nextall reported. "I'm detecting synchronized activity across their entire homeworld. Government facilities, military installations, even civilian infrastructure, they're all participating in some kind of coordinated response." "A desperate last stand?" suggested Klextos. "Possibly, but they're not mobilizing in ways we recognize. No weapons charging, no shield activation, no ship movements toward our position." As they passed Neptune, something strange began happening. The humans went completely silent. "All transmissions from Earth have stopped," Zephyrin announced. "No communications traffic, no broadcasts, no signals of any kind." "Sensor readings?" "The planet appears normal, Admiral. Same energy patterns, same population distribution, but they're not transmitting anything." Vextar found this even more disturbing than their earlier defiance. Complete communication silence was not a typical response to invasion. Most species either tried to negotiate or sent desperate distress calls to neighboring systems. They didn't just stop talking. "How long has this silence been maintained?" 43 minutes and counting, Admiral." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. This behavior was unprecedented in Imperial conquest records. "Perhaps they're surrendering," suggested Velthan hopefully. "Some species shut down all communications before formal capitulation." "Without sending a surrender message?" Thexara shook his head. "That doesn't match any behavioral patterns in our databases." The Fourth Fleet continued its advance toward Earth. The silence stretched to 1 hour, then 2, then 4. The humans maintained complete radio silence while their planet continued its normal rotation. Its cities continued glowing with electric light. Its population continued their daily activities as if nothing was happening. "Admiral, Sensor Chief," Nexidal called out, his voice carrying an edge of concern. "I'm detecting energy signatures throughout the system." Vexitar's attention snapped to the sensor station. "What kind of energy signatures?" "Unknown types, Admiral. The readings don't match anything in our database. They're appearing at multiple locations throughout the inner system." "Show me." The main view screen switched to display a tactical overview of the Sol system. Red dots appeared at dozens of locations, scattered among the planets and asteroid belts. Each dot represented an energy signature of unknown origin. "Are these human installations we missed in our initial surveys?" "Unknown, Admiral. The energy patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. They're not nuclear fission, fusion, or antimatter. They're something else entirely." Vexitar studied the display with growing unease. Intelligence had assured him that human technology was thoroughly catalogued and completely primitive, yet here were energy signatures that Imperial science couldn't identify. Could our sensors be malfunctioning? I've run full diagnostics 3 times, Admiral. All systems are functioning perfectly. These readings are real. How many of these signatures are we detecting? 17 so far, Admiral, and more are appearing every few minutes. As they watched, new red dots materialized on the display. Each one represented an unknown energy source coming online somewhere in the Sol system. Admiral, Communications Officer Zephyrin announced, "The humans are transmitting again. Finally, let me hear their surrender." But once again, the message was not what they expected. "This is Earth Command. You have had multiple opportunities to withdraw peacefully from Terran space. You chose to destroy Pluto as an act of aggression. You have been warned repeatedly. Your time for peaceful departure has expired." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "They're still not surrendering," whispered Thexara. "They're talking as if they have the upper hand," added Klextos. Vextar stared at the tactical display, watching more energy signatures appear throughout the system. Whatever the humans were doing, they were doing it systematically and with perfect coordination. "Admiral," Nextal called out, his voice tight with concern. "I'm reading massive energy spikes from the signatures we detected. Power levels are climbing rapidly." "How rapidly?" "Beyond anything we've seen from human technology, Admiral. These readings are approaching Imperial fleet levels. That was impossible. The humans were primitives with chemical rockets. They couldn't possibly generate Imperial-level energy output." "Verify those readings." "Already verified, Admiral, multiple times. The energy levels are real and climbing." Vextar felt the first real stirring of concern since entering the Sol system. Something was very wrong with this conquest. The humans were acting in ways that made no sense, generating energy readings that shouldn't be possible, and maintaining calm coordination in the face of overwhelming force. "Take us to maximum alert," he commanded. "Something is happening here that we don't understand." As the Fourth Fleet assumed battle stations, more energy signatures continued appearing throughout the Sol system. Whatever the humans had been planning during their period of silence, it was now becoming active. "Admiral," Vextar began to wonder if intelligence had made a mistake about humanity's capabilities. The energy readings continued climbing as the Fourth Fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. Admiral Vextar watched the tactical display with increasing alarm. What had started as a few scattered signatures was becoming a network of power sources that spanned the entire system. "Current count on the energy signatures?" he demanded. Sensor Chief Nextal consulted his readings. 47 confirmed sources, Admiral. Energy output from each one is now equivalent to a Imperial battlecruiser's main reactor." "That's impossible. These humans barely have fusion technology." "The readings are verified, Admiral. I've checked our sensors 6 times. Either these humans have technology far beyond what intelligence reported or what? Or we were never seeing their real technology to begin with." The bridge fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. If humanity had been hiding their true capabilities, then everything the Empire knew about them was wrong. "Admiral," Communications Officer Zephyrin announced, "we're receiving a new transmission from Earth. Put it through." This time, the voice was different, still human, but carrying an authority that hadn't been present in the earlier messages. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. You have destroyed a planetary body within Terran space and ignored multiple warnings. To withdraw. You are now in violation of our territorial sovereignty and the Terran Defense Accords." Vextar's mandibles clicked in confusion. The Terran Defense Accords? What were those? The human continued speaking. "As of this moment, all non-Terran vessels within our system are considered hostile. You have one final opportunity to withdraw beyond our system boundary. Failure to comply will result in defensive action." "Defensive action?" Weapons Officer Klextos laughed. "What can primitives do against the Fourth Fleet?" But Admiral Chen wasn't finished speaking. "Be advised that Terran space is protected by Autonomous defense platforms positioned throughout the system. These platforms have been monitoring your presence since you entered our territory. They are now fully active and targeted on your fleet. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Defense platforms, Thexara whispered. What defense platforms? The energy signatures, Nextal said quietly. They're not random installations. They're positioned in a defensive pattern throughout the system. Vextar felt cold fear creeping up his spine. Show me the tactical overlay. The main view screen displayed the Sol system with all detected energy signatures, marked in red. What had seemed like scattered installations now revealed itself as something far more organized. The signatures formed interlocking fields of coverage that would allow crossfire from multiple angles no matter where the Fourth Fleet moved. How did our scouts miss this? He demanded. Admiral, Science Officer Velthan said hesitantly. What, if they didn't miss it? What if these installations weren't active during our surveys? You're suggesting the humans built 47 battle station equivalents in the time since we arrived? No, Admiral. I'm suggesting they were already here but dormant, designed to look like something else until activated. The implications were staggering. If the humans had built a system-wide defense network and kept it hidden from Imperial scouts, then they were far more advanced than anyone had realized. Impossible, Klextos protested. We would have detected massive construction projects. You can't hide the energy signatures needed to build installations like these. Unless, Velthan said quietly, they built them a long time ago. Admiral, Vextar stared at the tactical display. 47 installations, each one generating power equivalent to an Imperial warship, positioned to create perfect defensive coverage of the inner system. The level of planning and preparation this represented was beyond anything he had encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. Admiral, Nextal called out urgently. The energy readings are still climbing. Each installation is now generating power equivalent to an Imperial dreadnought. That's impossible. Primitive reactors can't generate that much power. The readings are verified, Admiral. Whatever they're using for power, it's not primitive fusion. Admiral, Zephyrin announced, we're receiving another transmission. This one is being broadcast on frequencies we've never seen before. Frequencies we've never seen? Yes, Admiral. Our communication systems are detecting the transmission, but we shouldn't be able to. The frequencies are outside our normal reception range. Vextar felt another chill of fear. If the humans could broadcast, on frequencies that the Empire's most advanced ships could barely detect, what else could they do? Put it through. The voice was the same human admiral as before, but now she sounded grimly amused. Fleet Commander, our sensors indicate your vessels are maintaining course toward Earth despite our warnings. We are disappointed but not surprised. The Empire has a reputation for ignoring diplomatic solutions. How do they know we're part of the Empire? Thexara whispered. The Empire. Vextar hadn't mentioned the Empire in any of his transmissions to Earth. Admiral Chen continued speaking. Your fleet designation is recorded as Zephyrian Empire 4th Fleet, under command of Admiral Vextar. Your vessel signatures match Imperial, design patterns we've been monitoring for quite some time. The bridge crew exchanged shocked glances. The humans knew exactly who they were fighting. For your information, Admiral Vextar, Earth has been aware of the Zephyrian Empire's expansion into this galactic region for approximately 73 years. We've been monitoring your conquest patterns, studying your technology, and preparing appropriate responses. 73 years? That was before the Empire had even begun expanding into this spiral arm of the galaxy. We know you've conquered 37 star systems using superior technology and overwhelming force against unprepared civilizations. We know your standard operating procedures: ultimatum, demonstration of power, conquest. We know your fleet composition, weapon capabilities, and tactical doctrines. Vextar realized with growing horror that humanity had been studying the Empire for decades. While Imperial intelligence had been gathering basic information about primitive species, the humans had been conducting detailed analysis of Imperial military capabilities. We also know, Admiral Chen continued, that you expect easy victory against what you believe to be a primitive civilization. This assumption is about to prove fatal. The transmission paused, and when it resumed, the human's voice carried absolute authority. Admiral Vextar, you are hereby ordered to withdraw your fleet beyond the boundary of Terran space immediately. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your final warning before Earth Defense Command takes action to protect our territory. The transmission ended, leaving the Fourth Fleet bridge in complete silence. Admiral, Nextdoll announced, quietly, the defense platforms are powering weapon systems. What kind of weapons? Unknown, Admiral. The energy patterns don't match anything in our database, but the power levels are... He paused, checking his readings again. Each platform is now generating weapon-grade energy equivalent to 5 Imperial dreadnoughts. 5 dreadnoughts? Klextos sputtered. Per platform? That's more firepower than our entire fleet. And there are 47 platforms, added Thexara quietly. Vextar did the mathematical calculation and felt his heart skip a beat. If these readings were accurate, the humans had positioned enough firepower throughout their system to destroy the Fourth Fleet several times over. This has to be some kind of sensor error, he insisted. Primitives cannot build weapons more powerful than Imperial dreadnoughts. Admiral, Velthon said hesitantly, what if they're not primitives? What do you mean? What if everything we thought we knew about humanity is wrong? What if the primitive technology our scouts observed was deliberate deception? The science. Officer gestured toward the tactical display. Consider the evidence. They've been monitoring the Empire for 70 years. They know our fleet composition and tactics. They've built a system-wide defense network that was invisible until activated. They're generating power levels that exceed our understanding of physics. Are you suggesting, Vexitar asked slowly, that humanity has been pretending to be primitive? I'm suggesting, Velthon replied, that we may have made a terrible mistake. Admiral, Nextdoll called out with barely controlled panic. I'm detecting new contacts throughout the system. Ships are appearing on our sensors. Ships? What kind of ships? Unknown design, Admiral. They're not matching any configuration in our database, and they're appearing in locations where our sensors showed empty space just moments ago. The tactical display updated to show new contacts scattered throughout the Sol system. Dozens of vessels that hadn't been there during their initial scans were now clearly visible on sensors. How many ships are we detecting? Current count is 68 vessels, Admiral. All unknown design. All showing active power signatures. Where did they come from? Ships don't just appear from nowhere. Unknown, Admiral. They seem to have been cloaked by technology we cannot detect. Vexitar stared at the display in disbelief. Not only did humanity have a system-wide defense network, they also had a fleet that could hide from Imperial sensors. What are the size classifications on these vessels? Ranging from corvette to dreadnought equivalent, Admiral. Several appear larger than anything in our fleet. Larger than Imperial dreadnoughts? Yes, Admiral, significantly larger. Admiral, Zephyrin announced, we're receiving what appears to be a system-wide broadcast. All human installations are transmitting simultaneously. Put it through. This time the voice that spoke was not Admiral Chen. It was a different human, speaking with the calm authority of someone delivering a formal statement. Attention all vessels within Terran space. This is President Rodriguez of the United Earth Government, by authority of the Terran Defense Council and the Sol System Protection Treaty. All non-Terran military vessels within our territorial boundaries are hereby ordered to withdraw immediately. The human president continued speaking with the measured tone of someone reading an official declaration. The Earth Defense Force is now fully active and has assumed defensive positions throughout the system. Any vessel that fails to withdraw beyond our territorial boundary within the next 60 minutes will be considered hostile and will be engaged by our defense forces. 60 minutes? Klextos snarled. They're giving us an ultimatum? Furthermore, the president continued, any attempt to approach Earth or any other inhabited body within our system will be met with immediate defensive action. The Earth Defense Force has authorization to use all necessary measures to protect Terran territory and citizens. The broadcast paused, and when it resumed, The human's voice carried a note of what sounded almost like regret. To the commanders of the Imperial fleet, Earth has no desire for conflict with any species. We have spent decades hoping for peaceful first contact with our galactic neighbors. Your empire chose aggression over diplomacy. Your admiral chose demonstration of power over negotiation. Your fleet chose invasion over friendship. The consequences of these choices are now your responsibility. The transmission ended, leaving the Fourth Fleet in stunned silence. Admiral, Nextall announced quietly, all defense platforms are now showing full weapon charge. All human vessels are assuming battle formation. They're preparing to fight. Admiral, Vextar looked around his bridge at the faces of officers who had helped conquer 37 star systems. For the first time in any of their careers, they looked afraid. Admiral, Science Officer Velthan said quietly, I recommend we withdraw, immediately. Withdraw? Klextos protested. From primitives? These aren't primitives, Velthan replied. These are something else entirely, something we don't understand. Vextar studied the tactical display one more time. 47 defense platforms, each with the firepower of multiple dreadnoughts. 68 ships of unknown capability, a civilization that had been studying the Empire for decades while pretending to be primitive. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vextar was facing an enemy that might actually be more powerful than the Empire. Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display, watching red dots that represented more firepower than he had ever faced in 3 centuries of conquest. The 60-minute deadline the humans had given him was ticking away, and he still couldn't quite believe what his sensors were showing. Options report, he commanded. Senior Scout Commander Thexera consulted his tactical analysis pad. Admiral, if these readings are accurate, we are facing approximately 235 times the firepower of our entire fleet. That's impossible. Yes, Admiral. It should be impossible. But the sensor readings are verified and cross-checked. Either our sensors are completely malfunctioning, or humanity possesses military technology that exceeds Imperial capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Weapons Officer Klextos was studying his own displays with growing alarm. Admiral, I'm analyzing the energy signatures from their defense platforms. The power output suggests weapons that could destroy our dreadnoughts with single shots. Single shots? Yes, Admiral. Our strongest shields couldn't absorb more than a fraction of the energy these platforms are generating. Science Officer Velthan looked up from his analysis station. Admiral, I've been studying the human ship configurations. They're using design principles I don't recognize. Hull materials that don't match anything in our database. Propulsion systems that generate no visible exhaust signature. What does that mean? It means their technology is so far advanced beyond ours that we can't even understand how it works. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet humming of ship systems and the occasional beep from sensor stations. Every officer on the bridge was beginning to understand that this was not a normal conquest situation. Admiral, Communications Officer Zephyrin announced, we're receiving a direct communication from the human fleet. It's addressed specifically to you. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was Admiral Chen again, but now she sounded tired rather than threatening. Admiral Vexistar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I'm transmitting on a secure frequency that your ship's AI should be able to decode. I want to speak to you directly, Commander. To Commander. Vextar looked around his bridge, then activated his personal communication system. This is Admiral Vextar. I'm listening. Admiral, I've studied your military record. 37 successful conquests over 3 centuries of service. You're a competent commander who follows Imperial doctrine and achieves objectives with minimal casualties on both sides. You're not a butcher or a war criminal. You're a professional doing your job. The human's voice carried a note of respect that surprised him. That's why I'm going to be completely honest with you about your situation. Your fleet cannot win this engagement. The technology gap between your forces and ours is too large to overcome through tactics or courage. If you choose to fight, your entire fleet will be destroyed within minutes. You're bluffing, Vextar replied, though he wasn't certain he believed it. I'm not. Admiral, Earth has been preparing for this moment for over 70 years. We've studied every aspect of Imperial military doctrine. We know your weapons, your shields, your tactics, your standard battle formations. We've designed our defense system specifically to counter Imperial technology." Admiral Chen paused, and when she continued, her voice carried genuine regret. "More importantly, we've had 70 years to develop weapons and defensive systems that exceed Imperial capabilities. What you're seeing on your sensors is the result of 7 decades of focused military research by a species that really doesn't want to be conquered. Why should I believe you? Because, Admiral, you're still alive. If we wanted you dead, we could have destroyed your fleet the moment you entered our system. We didn't attack because we hoped you would listen to our warnings and withdraw peacefully." Vextar considered this. It was true that the humans had had multiple opportunities to attack if they possessed the firepower his sensors suggested. "Admiral," Chen continued, "I'm going to demonstrate our capabilities. Not to threaten you, but to help you understand what you're facing. I want you to observe what happens to the debris field from your Pluto demonstration." On the tactical display, Vexter could see the expanding cloud of gas and debris that had once been Pluto. The material was still spreading outward from the destruction site, glowing faintly with residual heat from the plasma bombardment. "Watch carefully," Admiral Chen said. Suddenly, the entire debris field simply vanished. One moment it was there on sensors, the next moment the space was completely empty. No explosion, no flash of energy, no visible effect. The remains of Pluto had simply ceased to exist. "What did you do?" Vextar demanded. "We disintegrated the debris at the molecular level using focused gravitic fields. The same technology we would use on your ships if you force us to fight. Your armor, your shields, your hull materials would simply cease to exist at the atomic level." The bridge crew stared at the tactical display where Pluto's remains had been. Even the residual heat signatures were gone. It was as if the planet had never existed. "That's impossible," whispered Klextos. "No technology can manipulate matter at the molecular level on that scale." "Your technology can't," Admiral Chen replied, apparently having heard the comment. "Ours can. We've had 70 years to develop it." Vextar felt a chill of absolute fear. If humanity could casually disintegrate matter at the molecular level, then Imperial weapons and defenses were completely useless. "Admiral Chen, why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want to kill you, Admiral Vextar. You and your crews are following orders and doing your jobs. This situation isn't your fault. It's the result of Imperial policy and Imperial intelligence." "Failures." The human admiral's voice softened slightly. "More than that, Admiral. Earth doesn't want war with the Zephyrian Empire. We want to be left alone to develop in peace. We're willing to forget this incident ever happened if your fleet withdraws immediately and reports that Terran space is too heavily defended to be worth conquering. You want me to lie in my report? I want you to survive to make a report. If you choose to fight, there won't be anyone left to report anything." Vextar considered his options. Everything his sensor officers were telling him suggested that the humans were telling the truth about their capabilities. The technology they were demonstrating was beyond anything in Imperial science. "Admiral," Sensor Chief Nextall called out urgently, "I'm detecting new activity from the human installations." "What kind of activity?" "They appear to be charging additional weapon systems. Energy readings are climbing again." "How much higher can they go?" "Unknown, Admiral. They're already beyond our ability to measure accurately." Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system again. "Admiral Vextar, we're powering up our primary defense systems, not because we want to threaten you, but because your fleet is continuing to advance toward Earth despite our warnings." Vextar checked his navigation display. The Fourth Fleet was still moving toward Earth on the course he had set earlier. He quickly issued orders to halt the advance. "Fleet is now holding position," he announced. "Thank you, Admiral, but you're still within our defensive perimeter. For this to end peacefully, your fleet needs to withdraw beyond the heliopause of our system. And if I refuse, then we will defend our territory. Admiral, I've tried to be diplomatic. I've shown you that we have the capability to destroy your fleet. I've offered you the chance to withdraw with honor. What happens next is your choice. Vextar looked around his bridge at officers who had served with him for decades. These were good soldiers who had followed him through countless battles. They trusted him to make decisions that would keep them alive. "Admiral," Science Officer Velthin said quietly, "I recommend withdrawal. The risk to the fleet is too great." "We can't just retreat from primitives," Klextos protested. "The Empire doesn't run from anyone." "These aren't primitives," Thexara replied. "These are something else entirely, something we were completely wrong about." "Admiral," Nextal announced, "the human ships are moving to surround our formation. They're taking tactical positions that would allow them to engage us from all angles simultaneously." Vextar watched the tactical display as 68 human vessels moved with precision that would make Imperial fleet commanders jealous. Their formation was flawless, their positioning perfect for maximum crossfire effectiveness. "Admiral Chen," he called out, "your ships are assuming attack positions." "No, Admiral. Our ships are assuming defensive positions. There's a difference. We're not preparing to attack you. We're preparing to stop you if you attack us." "What's the difference?" "Intent, Admiral. We don't want to fight, but we will if we have to." Vextar realized he was facing a decision that would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but possibly the future relationship between humanity and the Empire. If he withdrew, he would be admitting that the Empire had found a species it couldn't conquer. If he attacked, he might be leading his entire fleet to destruction. "Admiral," came Admiral Chen's voice one more time, "you have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures. After that, we will assume hostile intent and respond accordingly." 10 minutes? 10 minutes, Admiral. I'm sorry, but we can't allow an Imperial fleet to remain in our defensive perimeter indefinitely. Either you're withdrawing, or you're preparing to attack. We need to know which. Vextar looked at the tactical display one final time. 47 defense platforms with the firepower to destroy his fleet several times over. 68 ships using technology he couldn't understand. A civilization that had spent 70 years preparing for this exact moment. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he remembered Admiral Chen's words. "If we wanted you dead, we could have destroyed your fleet the moment you entered our system." They had let him get this far. They had warned him repeatedly. They had demonstrated their power without killing anyone. They were trying to avoid a battle, even though they apparently had the power to win it easily. "Admiral," Weapons Officer Klextos said quietly, "what are your orders?" Every eye on the bridge turned to look at him. 3 centuries of conquest had taught Vextar how to read tactical situations, how to assess enemy capabilities, how to calculate odds of victory. The odds here weren't just bad, they were impossible. "Communications," he said slowly. "Prepare a message for transmission to Earth Defense Command." Admiral Vextar took a deep breath and activated the communication system. Around him, his bridge crew waited in tense silence for his decision that would determine whether they lived or died in the next few minutes. "Admiral Chen, this is Admiral Vextar. The 4th Fleet acknowledges your superior position and will begin withdrawal procedures immediately." The relief that washed over the bridge was almost visible. Officers who had been holding their breath finally exhaled. Weapons Officer Klextos looked disappointed, but even he seemed to understand that retreat was the only sensible option. "Thank you, Admiral Vextar," came Admiral Chen's voice through the speakers. "That was a wise decision. We will monitor your withdrawal and ensure safe passage to the system boundary." "Admiral Chen," Vextar said, "before we withdraw, I need to understand something. Why didn't you destroy us immediately? You clearly have the capability." There was a pause before the human replied. "Because, Admiral, destroying your fleet wouldn't solve the real problem. The Empire would just send more fleets, bigger fleets, until you either conquered us or we killed so many of your people that peace became impossible. Then what was the point of this demonstration?" "The point, Admiral, was to show you that Earth cannot be conquered easily. We're hoping you'll report back to your Empire that Terran space is too well defended to be worth the cost of invasion." Vextar considered this. It made sense from a strategic perspective. If the Empire believed that conquering humanity would require massive losses, they might decide to focus their expansion efforts elsewhere. Will you let me go to carry that message? We'll let your entire fleet go, Admiral. Every ship, every crew member. We're not interested in prisoners or hostages. We just want to be left alone. As the Fourth Fleet began turning away from Earth, Vextar continued studying his sensor readings. The human defense installations maintained their power levels but made no aggressive moves. The human ships paralleled the Imperial formation at a respectful distance, clearly escorting rather than threatening. Admiral, Science Officer Velton said quietly, I'm detecting something unusual about our escort ships. What kind of unusual? They're not just following us, Admiral. They're scanning us. Very subtle sensor sweeps, but they're cataloging everything about our fleet. Ship configurations, weapon loadouts, shield frequencies, engine signatures. Why would they do that? I believe they're updating their tactical database, Admiral, learning everything they can about current Imperial technology. Vextar realized that even in defeat, humanity was gathering intelligence. They were studying Imperial capabilities the same way they had studied Imperial expansion patterns for 70 years. Admiral, Communications Officer Zephyrin announced, we're receiving a transmission from one of the escort vessels. It's a data package. What kind of data? Unknown, Admiral. The message says it's a gift for Imperial intelligence. Curious, Vextar authorized the data transfer. What he saw made his mandibles click in shock. The package contained detailed technical specifications for Imperial ships' weapons and defense systems, but not just current technology. The files included design specifications for Imperial equipment that wouldn't be developed for another decade, analysis of Imperial strategic weaknesses that their own commanders didn't know about, and tactical recommendations for defending against Imperial invasion forces. How do they know about our future development projects? Thexara whispered. They've been studying us for 70 years, Vextar replied grimly. They probably understand Imperial technology better than Imperial engineers do. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system again. We're transmitting that data package as a courtesy. We want your Empire to understand that we've been preparing for this contact for decades. We know your capabilities, your plans, your strategies. Why are you telling us this? Because we want peace, Admiral. We're showing you our cards so you'll understand that conquest isn't possible. We're hoping your Empire will choose coexistence over continued conflict. As the Fourth Fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system, Vextar realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had won a victory without firing a shot. They had demonstrated overwhelming superiority while maintaining the moral high ground. They had defeated an Imperial fleet through preparation and intelligence, rather than violence. Admiral Chen, one final question. How long have you really been spacefaring? There was a long pause before the human replied. Admiral, humanity has been traveling between stars for over 300 years. Earth isn't our only world. It's just the one we let other species discover. The implications of that statement hit Vextar like a plasma bolt. If Earth wasn't humanity's only world, if they had been spacefaring for 3 centuries, then everything the Empire knew about human civilization was deliberate deception. How many worlds do you control? Enough, Admiral. Enough to ensure that Earth's destruction wouldn't end human civilization. Enough to make conquest of our territory impossible even for the entire Imperial fleet. Why the deception? Why pretend to be primitive? Because, Admiral, we learned early that the galaxy is full of predatory species like the Empire. Species that conquer anyone they perceive as weak. We found it safer to appear primitive while we developed the technology to defend ourselves. As the Fourth Fleet crossed the heliopause boundary of the Sol system, Vextar realized he was carrying back more than just news of a failed conquest. He was carrying proof that humanity was not what they appeared to be. They were potentially the most dangerous species the Empire had ever encountered. Safe travels, Admiral Vextar, came Admiral Chen's final transmission. We hope the Empire will choose wisdom over aggression. But if more Imperial fleets come to Terran space, they will face the same reception you received. The communication ended, leaving the Fourth Fleet alone in interstellar space. Admiral, Thexara said quietly, what do we tell the Empire? Vextar stared at the sensor display showing the Sol system falling behind them. Somewhere in that system was a civilization that had completely outmaneuvered Imperial intelligence, built defenses that made Imperial fleets irrelevant, and achieved technological superiority while pretending to be primitive. We tell them the truth, he decided. We tell them that humanity is not a species the Empire can conquer. We tell them that Terran space is forbidden territory. Will they believe us? They'll have to, because if they don't, if they send more fleets to attack humanity, those fleets won't be coming home. 3 days later, Vextar's report reached Imperial Command. The response was immediate. No Imperial vessels were to enter Terran space under any circumstances. The Sol system was classified as a no-approach zone, and humanity was designated as a non-conquest species. But the real message came from Earth itself, broadcast on every communication frequency used by spacefaring civilizations throughout the local galactic region. This is Terra. We have existed in peace for millennia, asking nothing of the galaxy, but to be left alone. The Zephyrian Empire chose to threaten our territory and our people. They sent a fleet to conquer our world. That fleet has been allowed to withdraw unharmed as a demonstration of our desire for peace. However, let this serve as notice to any species that would follow the Empire's example. We are not your prey. We are not your victims. We are not the primitive civilization we appear to be. We have been watching the galaxy, learning from it, and preparing to defend ourselves against it. Any military force that enters Terran space with hostile intent will be met with defensive measures that will ensure they do not leave. Any species that threatens human worlds or human lives will discover that we are far more dangerous than they believed possible. We offer peace to all who would accept it. We offer friendship to all who would honor it. But to those who would choose conquest over coexistence, who would choose aggression over diplomacy, we offer this warning. Do not become the fools who crossed into Terran space. The message was received by dozens of spacefaring civilizations throughout the galaxy. Most chose to mark Terran space as forbidden territory and look elsewhere for expansion opportunities. The few species that ignored the warning discovered that humanity had not been exaggerating their capabilities. Within a year, the galaxy knew that Terra was not to be approached by military forces. Within 5 years, most spacefaring species had established diplomatic relations with humanity based on mutual respect rather than conquest. The Empire, meanwhile, found itself facing a new reality. For the first time in their history, they had encountered a species that was genuinely superior to them. A species that could have destroyed Imperial fleets but chose restraint instead. A species that preferred peace but was fully prepared for war. Admiral Vextar, in his final report to Imperial Command, wrote, "Humanity is not an enemy to be conquered. They are a neighbor to be respected. The Empire's future depends on learning the difference." The Fourth Fleet never returned to Terran space. No Imperial vessel ever would. But in the quiet corridors of Imperial Command, strategists and intelligence, officers began asking a new question. If humanity had been hiding their true capabilities for so long, what other species in the galaxy were not what they appeared to be? The age of easy conquest was over. The age of careful diplomacy had begun. And somewhere in the Sol system, humanity continued their peaceful development while their defense platforms maintained their quiet vigil, watching the stars for any who might mistake patience for weakness or restraint for vulnerability. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate the species that warns you only once.